Hi everybody, I'm James and this is my Spitfire. This is part 2 and today I'm going to take you around the laundry list of things that are wrong with it. And some updates on what I've been doing so far. The noise you might hear in the background is me emptying the fuel tank slowly. Okay, here we go. Right, so first up, bit of chrome work missing from the front. We've got one missing headlight surround and the other one's looking pretty sorry. We also obviously have a missing bumper and obviously the overriders that go with it. From the nose we're missing the Triumph name logo and the Triumph badge. And down here, if we look closely, we can see some extra bolts where someone has thought that a 1/4-inch bolt would be suitable to replace this whole bracket being welded on. Not really a good idea. And if you look here, this point here is meant to be here, which as much as this is all semi-adjustable once it's in place properly, I think has probably led to the fact we have something of a huge panel gap down between the bonnet and the main body of the car and the door. It's not terrible under here, but there's been some bodgy jobs done in the past. The spring for the accelerator is new. I've just put that on because there was nothing there before. And if you look in behind there, it's a fair bit of oil down the side of the engine. I think at the very least the rocker cover gasket is gone. I've got one of those on order and I'll be changing that out, and we'll see how we go with what else needs changing out. Around on this side we can look down here and see something I'm planning on working on today. The left front wheel is rubbing against the body, and what I've managed to work out, when I line everything up on the body of the car, it doesn't look to be fitting straight. So I'm going to be going around today loosening all the body to chassis bolts and shoving it all around a bit and tightening everything back down, hopefully to give this wheel some more room. May also need to work on the caster angle of it, which will also hopefully assist in it clearing that body panel. While we're over here, you can have a look in here and see there's a part missing. This hose here should be running through a valve that feeds the heater in the cabin of the car. So at the moment I have no choice but on for heat in the car, and as it's still quite nice and sunny around here, it'd be nice if I could turn that off. Other little things which I'll get to one day. Some nice person in the last paint job thought it was a good idea to rub down the VIN plate with sandpaper. So we still have the important information there, but yeah, the nice lettering is all gone. Fortunately you can actually buy those plates, so I can replace that, put all the information back on there. Yeah. And another thing in this area of the car, our engine mounts are looking a bit shabby, so I'll be attending to them in the near future too. And as you can imagine, with a car of this age, the wiring is all over the place, so I've done some work on that. Got rid of some live wires that were just lying around the place ready to short on anything and everything, but there's a bit more work to be done yet. As you can see here, I've been having some fun inside the car. I'm pulling out panels and things. This is mainly to get to the bolts for the body, so I can loosen them off, straighten the body up. Steering wheel isn't straight, and it's got some random, almost homemade looking pieces on it. At some stage I'll replace that, but it's also grinding on the steering column, so I need to take that off and see to that. Yeah, more electrical work to do behind the dash, tidying that up. But the big reason that the carpets and things are out in the front is to get to the transmission. So this started off with a speedo cable replacement, which I've done. However, I haven't really been able to test it outside using a drill before I put it on. And I found a couple of things here. One for my big drive up from Queenstown, if you watched the last episode. But all 4 bolts for the prop shaft from the transmission were loose. So yeah, they were not just slightly loose, I mean rattling around loose. So that's a bit dodgy. And the other thing I found in here, which is why I've also pulled the bolts out of the driver's seat, and we'll be doing the passenger seat soon. If you look closely in here, if you have a look in the middle of that shot, hanging down from the bell housing, there's a pin. That pin, I don't think should be hanging down that far. That's the pivot pin for the clutch fork, and yeah, I think I need to fix that before I take it out on the road again, otherwise it might fall on the road and I will have no clutch. Next on the list, the doors don't have any seals for the glass. New ones of those shortly. The check straps are checking nothing. There's a lot of missing clips and things in there, so I have to do something about that. Now, it does look a bit like the tank has been leaking, but what I found when I initially boarded is the filler neck was loose, so I've tightened that up, and the guy I boarded off said he always just kept topping up the fuel, so I'm assuming he was topping it up to overflowing and it was leaking out the neck. We'll see how that goes once I've cleaned it all up. You can see here I found some of the original paint. Triumph code 25, which is conifer green. I might look one day at getting it back to that colour. Other little things that are not quite right. This hinge over here is missing a bolt, but it's pretty rough looking anyway, so we might get a new one of those. The Triumph logo on the back is there, but there aren't any clips holding those letters on. Quite lucky that they're still there. I've taken the boot catch off because the key doesn't work in that, so I've been trying to sort that out. And in the boot, again, everything's a bit everywhere, but one of the reasons I'm trying to empty the fuel tank is so I can look at the fuel sender. As I mentioned in the last video, that's not working. So what we'll be doing is pulling that and seeing what's in there. Looking down the neck, I can't even see a float, so I'm wondering how much of that is actually in there and whether I'll just be buying a whole new sender unit. The rear bumpers are, well, they're not in great condition. They might tidy up, but what I'll probably end up doing is buying a whole set of bumpers when I buy the front bumper. And yeah, otherwise the tail lights are all a bit loose because they're lacking their proper gaskets. Again, it's an easy thing to replace. One thing I did last week is I've sorted out the exhaust, which was bolted directly to the back of the car, so that's got a little leather strap on there for now, and it also has been scraped quite massively on the ground due to being hard fixed. So I've just used my old arc welder to spot weld that back together for now. So it's still leaking a little bit out the seam, but not too bad. A lot quieter than what it was. As we look over the whole car, the paint's not great. I've looked around pretty thoroughly. It's just been a reasonably done paint job, as in obviously most of the panels were taken off, all the fittings and things to do it, but there's a lot of paint runs and things, so it wasn't a very great job. And where there's been stress and minor dings and things, the paint's cracked. It's a bit of a scrape there which someone's touched up with, well, looks like whiteout or something. Cracks here where the body obviously flexes. This is my hold the tube in the right place arrangement for siphoning the fuel out of the tank. Another crack there in the same place on the other side. I have yet to look at the diff, but what I'm thinking is I'll be refilling the fluid, the oil in the transmission and the diff before I take it out again. Then got some proper GL4 gearbox oil so that we don't affect the copper. Something I've learnt in my searching in the last few days is that you don't want to put modern GL5 gearbox oil in it, because that will eat all the copper synchros. Rust wise, there's a bit of surface rust around. See some there. Probably get on to treating that just with a bit of a tidy up and some rust conversion spray. Something I haven't talked about since last time. Windscreen's back in. Well, new windscreen's in. So put that in the other day. It wasn't too hard. A bit of elbow grease and using the string trick. Did it all by myself actually without any problems. The rubber is reasonably good but did rip a little bit. I probably could have used some more lubricating fluid of some description, which is what I did after it started ripping. Lathered that on so that the rest of the job went easily. It's a tip for anyone doing it in the future. And one little bonus that came with the car was these gas front shocks and springs. So I've been looking at these. The current springs in there are just the original standard ones, shocks same. I've given these a bit of a check. The adjustment seems to work, so I might put them in. I wasn't too sure about the springs, but I found a formula on the internet last night, so check that, and they sound like they'll be about the right. Right, so that's the laundry list of things I've got to fix. Most of them anyway. I'm sure I've missed a few, and there'll be a few I haven't found yet. That'll keep me busy though for a couple of weeks, just getting her done well enough to be back on the road, so that things like pins don't fall out and clutches stop working. I'll try and do another update in about a week. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, this has been part 2. I'm James. This is my Spitfire. See you all later.